I'm ChosenArchitect, and this is all the mods 9 to the sky. Now today, I'm jumping straight into resource generation. Well, we still have a bit more to sort of work on before we can fully do that, but today's ultimate plan is to be able to start automating our mystical agriculture crops. Now, when I say growing mystical agriculture crops, I don't mean in the sense of farming them in world. I've done that many times, and I think this go around, I want to change things up. Now, the reason I want to try something different is because back in All the Mods 9, whenever I played that, I ended up setting up these farms, which are basically modular routers with a 15 by 15 scythe inside of them. And it's got red fertilizer, and then underneath that, there's just a bunch of lily pads. And while these farms were fantastic and generated a ton of resources, they do get pretty laggy pretty quick. Now, when I say laggy, I mean like the TPS. We're supposed to maintain roughly 20 TPS inside of base Minecraft. And even in that single player world there, I was dropping basically down to 18 and 15 TPS with those farms just running. Now, I'm not saying that in the future I won't build something similar to that, but for right now, with our limited resources and supplies, it might be more beneficial for us to get into thermal, and by making a phytogenic insulator. But before we get into the meat and potatoes of this video, there's some things that I definitely want to get set up beforehand. And that's going to be making a personal shrinking device. One of my favorite tools, by the way, that allows us to shrink ourselves down to different sizes and also, well, increase our size. And I need to use this because I want to lay out some pipes and basically get a storage bus connected into our different barrels. So we have this barrel to connect to, these barrels as well to connect to, and all of this is going to require me to be kind of small, as I'm going to need to fit into a 1 block space. But besides that, there's also some wireless charging that I would really love to have. Now, Powa has options that do allow you to do wireless charging, but there's also a quest line that's kind of wanting me to get into Flux Networks. And Flux Networks is pretty easy to get into this pack. But what I do want to do is I want to use Flux primarily at the moment for just wireless charging. So currently in the pack, the way that you get started with Flux is you either have yourself a piece of bedrock, or you can start off with a 1x compressed obsidian. And then to turn that into the base ingredient for all of Flux Networks, we just need to take the redstone and toss it all onto this block right here, which is that 1x compressed. Then I'm going to place myself some obsidian up here, and I'm going to actually punch this. And as soon as I punch it, I believe, with a bare hand, there we go, with a bare hand, it will then drop down, and yeah, that gets us flux dust. Believe it or not, it's pretty cool. Now, after making some of the flux components, the easiest way to set this up is by using a flux plug, connecting it to your main power line, and then having yourself a flux controller, which will allow wireless charging. So I'm just going to tap directly into my energy cell, which is right here, and I'm going to tap into it from the bottom. And so by doing this, I will be creating my first Flux Networks network. And so to do this, I'll just say main. I always name it main, just what I love to call it. And then I will hit create. And then now I just need to select this. So now we have energy that can be sent in through this cable, and we can limit our power and everything. There's a lot of control with Flux Networks, which is really nice. And then we just need to place in our controller. We can place this anywhere we want, select our main network, and go to wireless charging, enable, and select the things that we want to have wirelessly charging. Notice all of my stuff, unless it's in the main inventory here, is going to start charging. That also should include the curio slots. Yes, all of my curio slots now have wireless charging. Now, with all of those problems out of the way, I can now open up the menu for this. And by right-clicking, you can see I can change this to different sizes. And some cool things to note, there is a mob over here. And that's because this can also shrink mobs. So if I wanted, for example, my demon wife to be a little bit bigger, all I have to do is shift and punch. And now the demon wife is way, way bigger, right? So that is just something you do, and then shift punch to return it back to normal size. And that goes for pretty much any entity. You can make yourself super tall as well by shift right clicking. And now we are an absolute giant. Yeah. But I want to use the small aspect of this. So I can go ahead and shift click and take this all the way down to about, I prefer a half a block. It causes less clipping, and I can become a very small, tiny little Chosen. And this should allow me to fit into single block spaces, just like so. And this is going to be perfect for cable routing because back in Applied Energistics, I just simply want to take some of my Science Smart cable here and I want to route it connected here. And I want to get this connected up through the floor, and then I'm going to use some facades, and that goes for both sides. Now, as far as facades go, and I'm going to be using them a lot, by the way, you need to use a knife on, for example, like an iron ingot to make cable anchors, and then you surround the cable anchors around the material that you want to create the facade for, and then we can create them. So just like this, and it makes it super easy to place these in. I'm going to go ahead and break this, and then place this cable facade. And the cool thing is I can just send my cable directly through and it's going to connect right here as if there's nothing preventing it from passing through. So now when connecting up an external storage, for example, in this case, I'm not going to want to allow my system to send items into this. Instead, I only want it to extract items or give me access to extracting the items. So when I place this on here, I need to change something. Right now it's set to bidirectional, which means it'll allow items to be inserted in and out. And you could play around with priorities to kind of get this to work. But for right now, I'm just going to make sure this is an extract only, so we can only ever pull items from here, because I don't want to accidentally start filling this block with a ton of random junk. And now this is a concept you're probably going to see me use quite a bit. Now, another thing to note, if you are playing around with facades like I am, for example, to get cables from one place to another, make sure you have a network tool. A network tool will allow you to see through your facades, which will be very helpful, especially if you're trying to figure out where you have things connected. And now to get into thermal. So thermal in this pack is incredibly powerful. And the reason being is that the base mod, of course, is in here, but we have add-ons, and there are add-ons in this pack that add in crazy tier levels of components and augments, all of which are upgrades for the base machines. Now, we need to first make ourselves an induction smelter that is going to be the basis for this whole thing. While not necessarily needed, it is definitely going to help us out, especially when it comes to automation. Now, and the reason why I say it may not 100% be needed, and that's just because you can use fire charges to create different sort of alloys, such as Invar, for example. You know what? For right now, I think I'm just going to forego the need for that machine, just for right now, because we will probably need it in the future. So what is the primary thing that I'm focusing on? That is going to be the phytogenic insulator. Now this is great, but it does require a bunch of upgrades in order to make it really, really good. And it's comprised of lumium, which is one of the mid-tier items that you would create with thermal series. And you can see it's just some tin, silver, and glowstone. So all of this combined together, and we should be able to make our first phytogenic insulator. And it should just work on its own without any upgrades. Now, once I have this thing made, well, we can start to play around with it a little bit. And the real thing that it needs is power and water. Now, this is where universal pipes are really going to play a pivotal role. For this particular situation, these pipes are going to be insanely helpful. So now I've crafted up a sink, which is a very cheap infinite water source, and I'm going to show you how we can send power, for example, and water into this machine using the same pipe. And the reason why I'm showing you this is because it's going to be necessary if we want to string a bunch of these together. Now, after that, we just need to configure the sides on the phytogenic insulator. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the auto input and output, which will allow this machine to auto pull things in and output, which is really cool because you can just have machines connected directly up to it and it will auto pull for them, which we're going to use here in a minute. But for right now, we simply just want to make sure water can be pulled in. So this is the back slot. The bottom right-hand corner will be the back of the machine. Of course, you have the face, then you have the right, the left, the top and bottom of the machine. But blue is typically input and orange is typically output. So something to keep in mind. Now, all we have to do is tell this to pull water and also to pull power. Now on the back of this, I'm going to make sure that this battery can receive power. And then this does have to be configured. So right here, we're going to make sure that that is set to input and the rest can be set to output. So the output over here on the cable. And with that configured, notice this is now receiving power and also has water because this pipe can carry all of those things. And so now honestly is for the cool part, because now we can use functional storage to make this effortless. And the type of drawer that I want is a 1x2. And I'm going to go ahead and make these fancy drawers. And what I want is I'm going to use some deep slate on them. So some of this polished deep slate that we've been using for everything, and calcite. So we can customize these drawers, these particular ones, to look however we want. And the way we do this is by placing this in the bottom of your crafting slot, and just like you see here, and it should give us a really cool looking drawer. So now that we have this set up, all we have to do is place this on top, and this is ready to rock and roll. And what we need to do now is we need to place our seed in, just like this, and let it at least run one operation. Now, notice how slow this is. Yes, that's how slow this machine is without any upgrades in it. But I promise you, we will be upgrading them soon. Now, instead of waiting, of course, I can go ahead and grab out another seed. And I'm using redstone here because this is probably one of the most used items in modded Minecraft is redstone. But I think I have some redstone essence, right? Yes. Okay, so essentially, the way that I'm going to automate this is I'm going to place my seed in here, and I'm going to have my essence in the same drawer. Now, what's going to happen is this is going to send out, when it's done doing its operation, it's going to send out the essence and also the seed. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that it pulls the seed back in. And if these are filtered, it will always give it a place to send seeds and also essence. And all I have to do with that is make sure that this drawer is locked. And I can do that by using a configuration tool. So essentially, we've created a filter. And now I can set this to input output. And so that's going to send the essence here. And because essence can't be brought back into the top slot here, the only thing that's going to go or try to go in here is the seed, until eventually we'll end up with a seed starting to build up here. But we'll definitely always end up with essence in here. Now we're also going to possibly be utilizing some other parts of this universal pipe, because there is another material that can actually go in here that will not only speed up this operation, but will also give you more essence than just one. And that, my friends, is the power of PhytoGrow, which is very easy to make in this pack, because it essentially just requires some niter and also some apatite, in which we can easily make with just some dyes. I'm not even kidding. They can be made with dyes inside of alchemistry. So, for example, mercury sulfide is super easy to get from this mod. You just need a dissolver, and if you look at what it's dissolved from, it's red dye. And same goes for the other material. And I mean, apatite's even easier because you can just farm it from a seed. I almost wonder, can niter be farmed from a seed? No. So this is the only one that we will have to do that way. Now, setting up this operation is definitely not easier than setting up a farm with a bunch of lily pads of fertilities underneath it and stuff like that. It is definitely not easier. But I find that to be a little bit more fun and a little bit more challenging because now I get to set up infrastructure. So I have something that I actually want to have in the world. And to me, it feels like if I was to set up those farms immediately, this pack would go by so fast. But wait, hold up. I'm not saying that this is not going to get fast, because now we have some fun stuff to automate, and we also have higher tier materials to go after. For example, the draconic integral component now, which requires netherite dust, the resonant components, which are all very simple to make, but dragon steel requires a few more things. If we go to the induction smelter, we'll see that it now requires dragon breath, netherite, and apatite to make. So in my opinion, it gives you some fun things to look forward to. And now let's, of course, not disregard these materials as well. There's also the stellite, which is another insane material here that we should be able to craft. This requires shulkers and bronze. And then the material that even goes after that, which is the twinite. So twinite, I believe, yeah, it uses the enderium, amethyst, and apatite. So just more cool recipes to automate. And now notice with these materials, you can't just make them with a fire charge. These have to be set up and automated inside the induction smelter. Now to be able to automate, for example, the pulverizer and the induction smelter with applied energistics, it is insanely easy to do this. All we are going to need is a pattern provider that directly goes on top of these machines, or really any side other than the face. And then inside the configuration, we need auto input and output enabled. And then these need to be set up to, just like we had the other one, basically allowing input and then output to be sent right back into the provider. And so any recipe that we put in here, it's going to automatically send it in, which is one of the features of the provider. And then the product will just go right back in. It doesn't get any simpler than that. Now, same goes for the pattern provider, and we just need to make sure that is set up the exact same way, but a little bit different on this. Now, there is a little bit of an issue that could potentially happen with the induction smelter. This could try to overfill the slots for some recipes. So what you could technically do is put this in blocking mode. So what it will do is, if it is in blocking mode, it will only push in the first set of crafting ingredients, and then it will it'll wait for the product to return and then send another set. So if the crafting ingredients are inside, then it won't send anymore. That feature alone is incredibly powerful. It allows us to, for example, automate the energizing orb with just one pattern provider on top and somewhere for the inputs to go back into the system. And it also makes automating things from create and things like that very, very simple. I think for now, because we haven't gone to the end yet, I think what we should do is only really automate some of the things that we're going to definitely need. Like, for example, the Fluix linkage amplifier is 100% going to be needed. This is how we speed up the processing speed of our machines, and then crafting up to the resonant integral component, which will give us a scale factor of 4 times. Now, of course, after we go to the end, we're definitely going to want to set up that draconic version. So I've made a bunch of auto crafting recipes, and at the moment I'm using regular ME providers, and this is going to be enough for this situation. But there is a mod called Extended AE, which adds a bunch of extensions, which basically make this into 4 providers if I really want to. And later on, we can actually upgrade our existing setups. So there are a card basically you craft, and you can just right click on them. We're going to be using those later on for sure. For right now, this is going to get the job done. And the pulverizer recipe, the only thing I have to do is turn diamond into dust, and that should be it for pretty much everything. Now, I did have to create a multi-servo press. This allows me to make sheets, which we are going to need for our linkage amplifiers and any of the other amplifiers that we're going to make later on, or not amplifiers, but what are these called? Augments? Yes. So any of the augments moving on down the road. And the rest, these are regular crafting recipes. And then this is all of the different alloys that we are going to need to be sent to the induction smelter. Now, speaking of upgrading our applied energistics infrastructure, that is going to happen very soon, because you could definitely tell I am already starting to run out of crafting slots. Yeah, that happens very quick in mod packs like these. So I should be able to now craft myself a resonant integral component. And oof, so we're immediately hit with the fact that we're missing stuff. That's because my goofy self forgot to plug everything in. So yes, I just need to route a single cable here and I'm good to go. Oh goodness. So now I should be able to, for example, craft one of these, hit start, and that is going to start sending all of the basic ingredients needed into all the machines. Oh, you just gotta love auto crafting. The time it took to set all of this up, oh, my future self is going to thank me. So now that I have myself my first resonant integral component, it's gonna go straight in the induction smelter, and that's gonna make it a little bit faster as I continue to make one for each machine. So now with all of the machines good to go, I made the linkage amplifiers, and I have 9 of them. And something you can do is you can put 3 of these each inside of the machine, and this is going to max out, of course, how much power this is going to cost to use at this particular tier, but it is also going to speed this machine up significantly. So there is a very large difference, in my opinion, from going from no linkages to full linkages with your max upgrade. So with all of these in here, let's see how long now it actually takes to craft a component. So just a base tier component, it's significant. So as soon as I do this, we're going to see how much quicker this is at running. And yeah, power gains are going to be a thing that we're going to have to overcome for sure, because just like you see here, we are using 320 per machine, and it's only going to increase the higher tier we upgrade throughout that extended mod. But as soon as I finished that sentence, it finished crafting. So it is very, very quick. We're just going to have to, well, up our power infrastructure very soon. And that's honestly what this is all about. And so now what I essentially mean by that is we can now produce certain seeds locally within a 2-block space, which is fantastic. And one of those seeds is uranium. Now, uranium produces uranium ingots, which that of course makes a lot of sense. And so we could take this essence and craft it up and send it directly into a bigger reactor, thus giving us a tremendous bump in power generation. So now, what exactly does adding a regular component in here do? Well, notice it increases the size capacity of the power storage and also the water capacity. And then when we add this in, it's going to jump up the power cost, of course. But this is now how fast it goes. And this is just on the default rate. This starts to get incredibly quick whenever we add these upgrades in here that are of the higher tier. And it also goes faster when we add the phytogrow, because this will then be producing, instead of 1 essence every operation, it will then produce 3. Now, to be able to get appetite, I'm going to go ahead and process some of this tin up. And this should, in the process of doing that, if I go ahead and take a look at this, should give us a chance to get some appetite. I don't know if we got any in that operation there. Did we? It's APA. We got 5. So that's perfect, because we need this appetite to be turned into mystical agriculture seeds. So now with the mystical agriculture seeds set up and ready to go, it's now time to work on the niter. And this is all to make that phyto grow. And this is where I'm going to dive into alchemistry, which is a pretty interesting mod. Honestly, it's not too bad, so don't think of it as being some scary mod. It basically takes items and just converts them into another item. Technically, that's probably the easiest way to explain this. Now, we need to use a dissolver to dissolve our initial item, and then the compactor is going to take the product of that, or the combination of those, and it is going to let you select what you want and then go from there. So for this, let's go ahead and create a pipe, and that is going to, these both are going to need power, by the way. We're going to need to send this a die. Now, I don't have die seeds automated yet, but we will have one set up with this setup here soon, and that will work. And so what we'll do is we are going to have this automatically send die into this, and it's going to auto craft as well from this exporter. I'm going to show you that here in a second. So yes, we just need to get this power. So let's take some of our cables. I think I have a few more universal cables. Actually, you know what, on these, I'm just going to use gates. Yeah, that way it'll get nice and charged up just from these being on the front of them. So now with some red dye ready to go, this is utilizing mystical agriculture. I can then utilize a crafting card to request that die. So inside of my export bus, I need to say, hey, go ahead and send some red dye and also request the craft for that. So essentially this should be able to do that. Now I wonder, yeah, there it goes. Does this have to be on top? It apparently can be on the side. So that is immediately going to produce this material. Now, right now, Cinnabar is selected, but what we need to do is actually change that recipe to not be Cinnabar. I will, however, take a little bit of Cinnabar for right now. So let's go ahead and pause this, and we should be able to change the target recipe from this. So the thing I'm looking for is niter. And after searching, I should be able to select that. After selecting, I can lock the recipe, and now go ahead and resume, and notice that the target is set to niter, and that's what we should be producing. And so the final step is to use a puller upgrade, which is going to be set to pull from the up, and we are going to use that to pull directly into our machine here from our functional storage. And as you can see, we are now producing niter. While this isn't the fastest setup in the world, it can be expanded upon later, and which I definitely will be doing. Now, what it does let me do right now is it lets me demonstrate how much better this is with the phytogrow. Notice the speed increase, and we will start to notice immediately that this is at 4.3, that it now went to 4.6. So it is now producing 3 essences now each operation, which, I mean, essentially triples the speed of this thing. So now after adding a few more seeds to the list, and these are just running on their own for right now, but we're about to upgrade them with some phytogrow, I need to, well, craft phytogrow. So a way that I can auto craft the phytogrow is the same way with a crafter card. And so I already have the recipe defined. We just simply need to take phytogrow, add it to the export list, and then I need to add a crafter card. So let's get a crafter card ready to go. This should craft up incredibly quick. There we have it. And I put that inside, and this should start increasing with phytogrow, given a little bit of time. Now, this is locked, and what I want to do now is I want to make sure that we have access to all of these drawers and or future drawers that will be connected in the future. And so to be able to do that, what I want is to place down a storage controller right here, and then I'm going to use my linking tool to only link up certain drawers. Now, this is the current radius you can see that we have, and we could always expand on this down the road. But for this particular controller, I only want to select these few blocks here, and I don't want the Fido to grow to be a part of this. And down here also, I want this one to be a part of the network. Now with all of those connected, what I can do is I should be able to place just a regular storage bus on this and then get it connected in. Now this one can be left on bidirectional, and this is going to be fine. And actually what I want to do is make sure this even has a higher priority than everything else on the network. That way, if we craft Essence somewhere else and I put it into the system, or I pull it out and put it in the system, it makes sure that it goes into these drawers, or tries to go into them first instead of going into my disks. Now, last but not least, I just need to add my universal pipe down here and make sure that my Fido grow is being extracted from here. And with all of these pipes hooked up, we now have water, power, and items flowing through these pipes, and it should be inserting the Fido grow into these machines. But it's not doing it round robin, which is something that I definitely want to make sure we fix. And the only way, unfortunately, to do round robin, I think, is to go at least to the gold tier on the pipes. This actually may not give it. It may be the diamond tier. We're about to see. Does this allow? Yes, this does allow. So at least this tier, the gold tier, will allow the round robin. And that essentially just means it is going to evenly distribute all of the connected machines with that Fido grow. And so technically the only thing left to do is to continue expanding on this and also continue adding the upgrades. These currently do not have the upgrades, only this current machine does. But notice we are dwindling on power, and that is going to be a major issue. So with that being said, next episode, we are going to be diving into how we can actually upgrade our power generation. And so I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and hopefully you'll learn something new. There was a lot of complex sort of logistic stuff that we did cover in today's episode, and hopefully you got something out of that. And well, with that, if you would, click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and give this video a huge thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. And now it's time to thank the amazing supporter of today's episode. And that amazing thanks is going to go out to Shingun. Thank you so much, by the way, for your amazing support by choosing to support me over on the Discord by becoming a Discord premium member and supporting me in one of the best ways possible. I thank you guys so very much for watching. Of course, I'll see you in the next one. And like I just said, as always, thanks for watching. Bye!